I met Gino Odjick when we were first playing together in the Milwaukee Admirals. He went on to be a super heavyweight in the NHL with the Vancouver Canucks. But he was one of the most unique individuals you'd ever see. He was born on a reserve in Quebec and had a pretty rough upbringing. Fought like crazy in the Quebec League, and in the minor leagues, he took on all comers and led to his chance to play in the NHL. He got called up before me, but there's lots of funny stories about Mr. Gino Odjick, probably the toughest guy I ever met. The first one was in the dressing room one day. He's fighting a cold, and he comes into our trainer and he says, "Mr. Agnew, can I please get some A535?" And we think he's gonna wipe it all over his chest, do whatever. He eats the tube. Apparently it's a thing. He's gonna cure the cold from inside. I said, "Gino, where'd you learn to do that?" He said, "Oh, at home we did that on the reserve." I said, "Anything else happened growing up?" He goes, "Yes, I was a colicky baby. And as I was growing up as a baby, my mother used to put a rag soaked in gasoline in my crib to help me sleep. The fumes would help me relax." I remember one night we were playing in Indianapolis against Dominic Hasek, and they had a tough guy on their team named Cam Russell. And there was a neutral zone face-off, and I was the backup goalie, and Gino Odjick lines up for a face-off right in front of Indianapolis's bench. Well, Cam Russell for Indianapolis is on the bench, and he starts pretending like he's spitting over Gino's shoulder. Gino looks over his shoulder, gives him the death stare, and this goes on 3 or 4 times. Cam Russell keeps faking spitting on Gino Odjick. Well, Gino's finally had enough, turns around, grabs him by the collar, with one arm pulls him straight out to his feet catches on the edge of the boards. He's planked, horizontal to the ground. Gino fills him up, knocks him out, spins him around, drops him on the ice, and then spits on him. Don't mess with Gino Odjick. Gino was one of the greatest guys, best heart. Everybody in the team loved him because he protected you. I remember when he first got called up, there was a big banner that said, "Gino Odjick, you're as tough as Saddam Hussein." This was right in the middle of the first Gulf War, and the sign said, "Gino, you're as tough as Saddam Hussein." He leaned over to me on the bench. "What number is that Saddam Hussein?" I wasn't much of a fighter, obviously. I'm not a very big guy. I tried to stay away from it. I had probably 2 or 3 fights in my career, lost most of them, got beat up by a guy named Jason Muzzati in college hockey against Michigan State, so I tried to avoid the rough stuff. But we were playing Phoenix one night, and there was a goaltender named Mario Gosselin, played a lot for the Quebec Nordiques, smaller guy. But there's a 5-on-5 brawl going on at the other end. And in the midst of it, Mario decides to go around blockering people. So back then, Milwaukee had huge crowds because we were trying to get an NHL team. I start sprinting down the ice, 18,000 people going crazy. By the time I get there, can't see him. So I just cannonball, lay out everybody. I hook up with him, as you can see in the picture here, and we ended up dancing. And when the gloves were off, I'd hit him so many times, he forgot how to speak French. In all seriousness, that first year in Milwaukee, I stopped a lot of pucks, got my first call up to the NHL, but I was also pretty tough. I put 3 people in the hospital that first year in Milwaukee, 2 in the maternity ward. Spending all those years with Belfour, got to see his car collection in Freeland, Michigan, knew he was a pilot, and from time to time he'd bug me, wanted to know if I'd be able to go out with him in the plane. I said, "You know what, Eddie, I'm not going to fly with you. I know you're a pilot, but in this world I firmly believe people can do one thing really well. And I know exactly what that is, Eddie. You're a Hall of Fame goalie. I'm not going to fly with you in a plane because I know how that story is going to end. There's going to be a plane crash into a cornfield somewhere, and you're going to die, I'm going to die. The Hockey News is going to do a big 3-page spread about how awesome Eddie Belfour was. And at the end, they're going to put one little line, and it's going to say, and they found some other guy in a cornfield with a corn stalk up his butt." That's not how I'm going to go out, Eddie. So I never trusted him, never got in a plane. Eddie had a great attention to detail. He noticed everything. And in the NHL, all the cameras are flashed by the lights in the building. They are all conditioned to strobe when the camera guy presses the button. Now the key is, you can't be flashing that when the puck's en route to the goalie. You don't want the building lights flashing. It's going to make the job of stopping the puck incredibly difficult. And we don't want flashes on the camera over in the corner shooting in the goalie's eyes. So in the NHL, all the cameras are triggered with a flash from the lights in the building. Now, one day Eddie comes into the dressing room really upset, kicking, screaming, wants to find out the photographer, what the heck's going on here? And we're like, Eddie, what's going on? He says they're firing that flash when the puck's on the way in. And we're talking about milliseconds. So sure enough, we catch the Getty images the next day with all the NHL photography. And sure enough, you can see Eddie's watching the puck into his body. Puck hasn't got to him yet, and the flash was going off. So instead of the puck hitting and leaving his body, then the flash going on, the camera guys were a little trigger happy, and Eddie was none too happy. One thing Ed is well known for is his huge car collection. And he loves his Dodges. He loves his Plymouths. He had an amazing Hemi Cuda. He probably had 40, 50 cars at any one time. And when I was at his shop in Freeland, Michigan, I noticed a Nuts Original 65 GT350 Ford Shelby Mustang. Probably $250,000 car. I'm like, Eddie, what do you got a Ford in here? You got all these Plymouths, all these Dodges. And he looks at me and he says, if it says Shelby on it, I don't consider it a Ford. So at the end of the day, Eddie loved his cars, Eddie loved his airplanes, and Eddie loved his attention to detail.